Okay, good evening, everyone,
Good evening.
and good to see you all here. And hello to Mo, Ro, John, Ron, Bill, Lucinda, Kelly, Dawn, Kathy, Peter, Renee, and Uncle Dave. And we should say hello to um, uh, Damon, and because I haven't heard from him today, so I'm assuming he's not going to make it. And so anyway, so that's the group for today. Okay. Tommy, you said you wanted to say something.
Well, I think so. I've been
Thanks.
Yeah,
been
wait
tr-
till we turn off the pop machine. All right,
I've been
there you
trying
go.
to accept the fact that I'm not in control and God is. And so by turning it over like that, I've been finding out that sometimes it can be exhausting if you focus on that. We had a lady that passed away on our street, and we've been kind of helping out, my neighbor and I, with her for doing chores and working around her place for 10 years. She'd been struggling with cancer, and she finally passed. And the gal that was being her caregiver called me and asked me if I could help in that blackout, with power out.
Mm-hmm.
And she had heard by the grapevine, because my neighbor has a big mouth, that I was an electrician in my former life. And so I went in and put a generator in for her house, because the cancer lady had given her the house.
Nice.
And she gave my name to her parents. Now, the whole reason for this was that I sensed they were believers. I sensed the love. We talked about love, God's love, and how the cancer lady had affected her by her forthrightness. And she said, I never thought I would see this kind of thing. I said, well, I know a little bit about caregiving myself. And so she sent me out to Timbuktu, way out by Rollins Inlet, to her folks. And we were hugging and talking at the table for hours.
Mm.
And they called 2 people.
Oh,
15 generators later, today, right before Bible class,
nice.
I'm out there at that old mobile home park, Alta Sierra, and this gal and I are talking about God's love. And we finally got the generator issue after 3 hours squared away. And we're standing in this woodshed with all this wood stacked up around this high, shoulder high. And I looked at her and I said, we got to hug. So we hugged, and I said, you know what? I've been to the woodshed before as a child. This is the first time I've been to the woodshed, and it was church. And I can tell you that if we open ourselves up, we will have those kind of experiences every single day, because every generator I have put in has been with some believer, and not one of them has said, where are you going to church? Every one of them was about God's love
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Yeah,
and God's acceptance.
that's fantastic.
And if I don't believe in hell, am I going to it? Rings in my ears every day now, because all of these people were believing in the Jesus story, the gospel, sans
Yeah.
the control mechanism.
Okay, great. Super. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's super.
Generator man, I'll have to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, and Tommy wrote me a question this week. He mentioned it a little earlier, but not everybody was here. He said, in the next life, the class will be... No, that was my answer. Excuse me. He said, if we don't believe in hell, are we still going? Is Bible class at 5:15 p.m. in heaven? And I said, in the next life, the class will be continual. Where you will be is anyone's guess. So, all right. Bill and Carl and I today went to the local ministerial fellowship luncheon. Once a month they have it. I haven't been for a long time. Last time I went, they got some kind of paper out they wanted me to sign, and I wouldn't sign it. So I thought, well, maybe I better not go. But but it was at Round Table Pizza. And I haven't had Round Table Pizza for a long time, so I decided to go. Anyway, but I'm going to tell you, I don't know about you, Bill, but I had a hard time relaxing. You too? I kept noticing myself, I'm tense. I said, why am I tense?
Well, they asked me where I go to church too, or no, where I'm serving. That was the part.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that particular day, I don't think that was the reason. I don't know. I just was tense, and I'm trying to figure out why, because I'm normally pretty relaxed in any situation, but there I was very tense.
My feeling is when you open up prayer and for people who are pastors,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to pray for things that God's already given them.
Oh yeah, well we did notice that. Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm sitting there thinking, well, he's already taken care of that one. Check. He's already taken care of that one. Check.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed the same thing. Yeah, and we talked about that when because he and I sat at lunch together, and it was, and I have a problem with myself. I have to be careful to not be judgmental, because I know I used to pray the same way, and I used to believe the same thing, and so I got to remember, I used to be right there and with them, and right there one of them. And honey, you're going to say something?
Yes, I was hearing a pastor talk about prayer's not telling God what to do. You don't say, "Oh, my neighbor's kid's got leukemia, heal him."
Mm-hmm.
You're not to be telling God what to do.
Well, that's what most prayer is with most people.
I know that.
Yeah.
Most of
And I have to tell you, I mean, it is with me a lot too. I like to tell him what to do. And of course, when I get done praying, I said, "Okay, this is what I want. Now, you go ahead and I know you're going to do what you're going to do anyway. So just cause me to be compatible with it. Cause me to fall into line with it, to be submitted to it." Yeah, Tommy.
This is Pentecost. It works different for everyone, but it's the same dynamic. And for me, it's typically we all recognize hurt, need, or whatever it is. So I take that opportunity to say, this is what I see, this is what I feel, and I know you're handling it because I can't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an offering up to what we're feeling. It's an offering up to what is going on, rather than to list these things and directing anything.
Yeah.
It's already been handled.
Yeah, yeah, and that's true. And the thing about it is, Lord doesn't get on our case for how we pray. Okay, I mean, whether you tell him, whether you're asking, no matter what, he doesn't get on our case. Okay, he knows we're little kids, so it's just like a little kid saying, "Daddy, I want this, I want this, I want this," and he's good with that. Okay. Doesn't mean he's going to give it to you. He's going to give you exactly what you need. This is kind of Father that we have. He's going to give us exactly what we need. Sometimes he lets us have what we want, and to find out, maybe I ought to I ask with a little more humility, so that because sometimes we get what we want, we realize, hey, I really didn't need that at all. I didn't really want that at all, because the consequences of getting what I wanted were not the best.
That's right. I always pray, don't make it hurt.
I think what's missing for many people who believe is that they look at prayer as these boxes or things that we do during the day. And I think we have to realize that prayer is something that we're doing 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
All this is the conversation
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah.
And he's trustworthy enough to keep us in full communication with him. It's
Right.
not up to us to do
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So prayer then becomes conscious as well as unconscious.
Right.
And when it's unconscious, that doesn't mean he's not fully engaged in a conversation with our heart and mind.
Right.
He
Exactly.
is.
Yeah.
So, and when we kind of create these boxes like today, that's what created part of the tension, is we generally walk into that situation and we go, okay, this is prayer time.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to enter into it.
Yeah.
We got to start
Yeah.
it, and it has an end to it.
Yeah.
And the end is when the pizza arrives. And then, but we don't realize we walked into it praying, and
Yeah.
when we're walking out, we're still in full conversation with it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very
Even-
good.
yeah,
It
even-
is, it is putting a limitation on what is
Sure is.
continual, moment to moment, every second.
Yeah, but the limitation is always one-sided. We never limit God. We
No.
can never limit God, and He's always going to do the best thing for us. And so that's excuse me. That's what we need to understand. And Paul says, we don't know how to pray, but so the Holy Spirit prays for us, and in groanings and utterances that we don't understand and we don't hear, but the Trinity, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, they know what it's all about. And so don't ever get discouraged or down in the dumps if you don't think you're praying correctly or whatever. God's got all that covered. All right.
The Holy Spirit's praying in us all the time.
Right.
Isn't it comforting to know that while I talk gibberish, God knows my heart?
Yes.
So then, really,
Yeah.
that's comforting
Yeah.
to know. I really don't, not only can I not fix this, I can't even describe it.
Right.
And,
Light in the Lord and He will give you strength.
Yeah.
right.
But what's more comforting is to know about His heart, and His heart is always inclined towards us. And
Oh, because I'm the favorite.
yeah. All right. Here's a little email conversation I had with Greg Chambers. Some of you up here don't know Greg and Mary Chambers. They go to the Sacramento meeting. And so I said, hi, kids. Just want to let you kids know you're always welcome in Grass Valley. It's probably a shorter drive from Gridley to here than to Sac, because now they retired and they moved to Gridley. Furthermore, there will be no meeting in November in Sac, so hope you are enjoying your retirement. Love, Mike and June. So he writes back, thanks, Mike. We have missed you guys. We missed you in September as our Amtrak train got in quite late. Big surprise. From our trip back from D.C. It was a great trip except for the non-functioning bathrooms. A story for another time. We were gone for 4 weeks on our post-retirement trip instead of the 2 weeks or so that we planned to be gone, as we traveled to visit help with Mom with some issues in Southern California, so that had us missing you in October. I'm not sure retirement is any less work. Just no pay. So, which I can attest to. Can't make it tonight, but I will try to visit you hill people soon, in quotes, assuming your power works.
Oh, no.
Yeah. He said, need me to bring a generator? Us Flatlanders haven't lost power yet. So
Yeah.
Greg, I got something for you, pal. Smart aleck. Okay. All right. I just thought I'd share that with you. Greg and Mary are wonderful people, just like all the rest of you. All right, Francois Detroit. Here, let's pass this stuff out here.
That'd be a good thing.
You forgot about that?
That's the second time I've heard escaping your retirement has come up, and that's somebody else's life.
All right, Francois.
Well, you do. You get too busy when you retire. You don't have time.
Francois, wrote the, wrote it. He is the translator of the Mirror Bible. And he says, faith is not make-belief. Not make-believe, but make-belief. And this is where so many people try to, in their Christian walk, they're always trying to believe. So faith is, they're just trying to get enough faith and so on. But faith, again, is something that we all have. Faith is merely the ability to trust in someone or something. And you can trust in yourself. You can trust in Buddha. You can trust in anything. You can trust in Shadow down here, or you can trust in God. All right. So he says, telling the ugly duckling it's ugly and will only improve if it believes it can become a swan is not telling the swan truth at all. It's just bad news in a religious sounding disguise. And that's what we do when we tell people, well, you can become a good Christian, but you're not. So but you can be if you have enough faith, or you can, whatever it is that they're trying to get you to believe enough in. He said, good news is good news because it's good news to begin with. And so that's what we need to understand. Yeah, we're all ugly ducklings in the flesh, but we don't become better by believing more, believing harder. We all already are swans. We're already all new creations. We didn't make ourselves that way. We were born that way. We just look ugly on the outside from the standpoint of sin and righteousness, but we're all beautiful. We're all beautiful on the inside. We're all beautiful in who we are because God has made us, everyone, beautiful creations. So I want you to, I'm going to keep saying that over and over because I want you to understand that. You are a beautiful person. God sees you as beautiful. Tommy.
Don't stop saying that, because all these, remember the story I shared with you about the people, and all of them were believers. But the interesting thing that I kept observing was that they would all agree about the love, but there was a postscript to all of their sharing, which was, yeah, you must believe. And it really was hard for me to, because I wanted to say, wait a minute, God does all the believing.
Yeah.
We're just in the receiving.
Yeah.
But the happiness and the love was what we were focusing on in talk, but keep saying it.
Yeah. But again, we're not saying that belief is not important. Belief will not make you into a swan, but believing will cause you to know, understand, even though your flesh and your flesh is sinning and so on, the new creation that you are is absolutely beautiful. Okay, and that allows you, faith allows us to participate in all that God has for us. You participate in the love and participate in all the fellowship, and that's what faith does. Faith doesn't get us in, and lack of faith doesn't keep us out. It just keeps, if lack of faith keeps us from participating in what the enjoyment and the fruit of the Spirit that God has for us. And that's just a simple fact of it. It's just, that's it.
Yeah, faith won't make you look like a swan, but it will give you the ability to act like one.
There you go. Yeah,
Very good.
yeah, it does. Yes, that's good. Very good. Yeah. All right. So, first question we have here.
Right on.
First question we have is from a fellowshipper, and that fellowshipper is with us tonight. And this is Bobby's question. Bobby wants to know about the gap theory. And the gap theory is the theory that there are two separate creation periods according to Genesis. Now, the gap theory is exactly that. It's a theory. It cannot be proven. It can't be, it can't be disproven. Okay? And so the gap theory is the fact that that God originally, in Genesis, the first chapter, He created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void. Okay, remember that part? Okay, and so that was the first creation, and in that's when He may have created dinosaurs and all this other kind of stuff. So now I tend to believe in that theory, in the gap theory, but again, we can't prove it, and since we can't prove it, it's not anything to fight about or argue about. It's simply just interesting, okay? That theory that that God created the heavens and the earth, and who knows what else, but then let it go for millions and millions and millions of years, okay? And then He says He looked down on the earth. Remember, He says in the second portion of that, and then the earth was without form and void. So He said, now that's when He began to separate the waters from the land and so on, and began the 6-day creation theory. And of course, we have the 6-day creation theory, and people saying, of course, the Bible literalists think, well, that's 6 literal days, I am not a 6 literal days believer. You know, I believe that it was these days. He says a day is with as with 1,000 years with the Lord. So anyway, I can't prove it one way or the other. And again, doesn't really matter. We're all here. Okay? We're all here. History is what it is. Someday, we will all know. The Lord will explain it all to us. He's going to show us. We're going to find out all kinds of stuff when the time comes, okay? Eternity is going to be a lot of fun, I'm going to tell you. We're going to get to learn a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch about the past, and we're going to explore the future every cotton-picking moment of the time, and we'll be learning and having a good time and exploring. I believe we'll be exploring the universes, and it's just going to be fabulous.
Aren't we already in eternity?
Yes, we are, but yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. No, that's Donna said, aren't we already in eternity? And yes, time is just a segment of eternity, okay? It's just a segment of eternity in which the Lord is dealing with human beings. And it's, again, speculation about what he's doing with all these human beings and why he allows things to be the way they are. And my contention is, and again, I can't prove it, so I'm not super dogmatic about it, but Carl got a book for us to read, and I think I've mentioned it already in class, about the atonement of God. Did I mention that in the class one? Did I? All right. It's by J.D. Myers or something like that. Is that the name of Bill? The Atonement of God. And the title itself is kind of weird, right? Because when you think of the atonement, what are you thinking of? The atonement of man, right? The atonement of sinners. But the title of the book is The Atonement of God. And when you get through with the book, you find out that what Myers is talking about, he says that, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, God is apologizing. The cross is God apologizing to us for allowing us to fall into the morass that we have created in this cosmos. Okay? Mankind has created all this that we have. The hatred, the sin, the degradation, the murder, everything. You remember the story in the garden? He planted 2 trees. Tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the one that Adam and Eve ate from, right? And it is described to them that this was the beginning of our estrangement from God, which was a one-sided estrangement. God never left us, but we were alienated from God in our own minds, and we began to kill and murder and maim and steal and do everything that was against love. Okay? We did everything against love. But God planted the cotton-picking tree.
But
Yeah, Tom?
That is where we get, yes, but the thing is. And that is the part of that, and I always refer back to, that's the tree, man.
Yeah.
That's the apple. We always have some symbolic, but that's
Fruit,
where it
yeah.
came from.
Yeah.
To allow us to think,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Now, the question is, and I probably have said this before, but I will see if you remember, or if you know it yourself. Why did God do that?
Love.
Huh?
Love.
Love. Why?
To
What
get-
love? What love?
His love. His total belief that if I truly love, I'm giving you the whole smash. If I truly love you. And then at the same time, after watching what I've done with it,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And that He still loves us.
And still loves us.
And that He still loves us. And to me, this is the answer to this that's going on. and why it's only going to go on for a certain time, and then it's all going to be over.
So answer
And
me
then there'll
this,
be no-
why is it so uncomfortable to us to look that deeply within ourselves?
Well, because of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because we think that God couldn't love us. How can God love people like us? How can he love murderers and thieves and adulterers and all the stuff? How could God do this? And God and then we go and we kill Jesus, and God is not retributive. God says, you gave us death, we're going to give you life. And why? Because we love you. We love you. We love you. Right? And how else? Let's say you have two kids. You got one that's a rotten kid, and does everything, and you got one that's just super nice all the time, And do you love it? Do you love them differently? I mean, you might love them differently, but you love them the same, right? You love your children the same. You can't choose one over the other, Somebody says, "Well, I'm going to take one. You take." I can't make the choice. I love both of them. I love whatever. So consequently. But our problem is that, and this is what Adam and Eve, the minute they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they got their eyes on themselves. Previously, they enjoyed everything. They enjoyed God, they enjoyed all their surroundings, and they cavorted around in the garden and played with the animals, did everything. Did everything they wanted. And they were naked. No big deal. They didn't have their eyes on themselves.
Well, the key
As
was
soon
they
as
were
the tr-
unashamed.
Well, because they didn't have this.
Whether or
There
not
was
the
no good
clothing
and
was the
evil. There
issue,
was no
they
nothing.
were unashamed.
Yeah,
There was
yeah,
nothing
yeah.
to because there
Yeah.
was not the apple.
Yeah,
Would
yeah.
that would mean they're selfless?
Selfless.
Yeah,
They were
maybe.
not self-absorbed.
No, I didn't.
No,
But selfless.
not selfless. No, I don't think so. That's a good question, but I don't
I
think
mean,
so.
I'm thinking that if you're able to be naked and be unaware of being naked,
Hmm.
then you wouldn't be aware of the other subtleties of life, like shame and
Well, yeah, of course, there was nothing like that.
right.
Yeah.
Not yet.
No, yeah, not yet, because as soon as they ate of the tree, that's when shame and
So they have
yeah,
to be selfless.
well, selfless. Okay,
Yes.
okay,
An
probably.
absence.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
It is an absence.
Yeah.
It was because their days were filled with the Lord coming down, according to the way it's written, the story, so that it's easy for me to see the Creator, Father, coming down and saying, "What do you think?" And it was just about the wonder of this love, the wonder of this creation, the wonder of it all, without this identity of self.
Identity. That's the whole.
Yeah.
They were not aware of themselves.
Well, I
There
think
was
I
no
think they
selfless.
were aware of themselves, but there was no right or wrong. There was no good or
Right.
evil. There was nothing like that. And so and they may have I'm sure they did everything to please themselves. Okay, and so they pleased themselves and they pleased each other and that's just the way they lived. But soon as they ate of the tree, now shame and guilt and all the crap entered in. And then, oh gee, we don't have any clothes on.
The knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
I mean,
It wasn't necessary until then.
until then.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, it wasn't necessary at all.
I was just thinking, from a psychological point of view, developmental stages, the first year of life is trust versus mistrust. But ages 2 to 3 is either shame or autonomy, which is that sense of self. But the shame, so a baby up until age 2 is totally shameless.
Right,
I mean, they don't care. They're running around
Right.
naked,
Yeah.
and they haven't been shamed yet
Right.
by doing right or wrong so much. I mean, they don't get it.
But
Really.
their consciousness hasn't arisen in them yet.
they're not self-conscious.
Right,
No.
they're
Right.
they're,
They're
they're
innocent.
still sponges.
Yeah,
But they're innocent, just like
Yeah.
Adam and Eve.
But that innocence,
Yeah.
that's what Adam and Eve,
yeah,
They were innocent.
they were absolute innocent
Yeah.
until they ate of the fruit. And then their knowledge, they became aware of themselves and their private parts and
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards.
Wrong,
Yeah. yeah,
That had
and
to
the
be fun.
and their focus became inward
Yes,
instead of
outward.
just being everywhere.
And having to cover up.
The only issue they had was aardvark, porcupine, rat,
Edible,
trees.
not edible.
Yeah, what can I eat? You know,
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
what? Okay, you know, what game we going to play today? Whatever, you know. Yeah.
I want some of that.
All right. So, okay. Anyway, so that I don't know if that answers your question, Bobby, about the gap,
What you started?
the gap
Well, I
theory.
was studying. I was studying it for about a week
Wow.
before I gave it to him. To
Yeah.
other people, and they kind of said just basically what you said, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so
It's
there is a theory that
Yeah.
that there's things we don't know. It could be the lost books, you know.
yeah.
It could be anything.
We don't know, and so again, I'm not going to fight with anybody
No.
over it one way or the other. You know, I'm not going to fight with anybody over anything. I
But
mean, you
but
know.
I do know that a baby is born with a sense of right from wrong from conception,
Hmm.
and maybe even prior to conception, according
Yeah.
to the Bible. So no matter what the child does in developmental stages, the sense
Oh,
of
they
right
have it.
from wrong has always been in
Oh
there.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that they'll either be
Yeah.
right or do
Yeah.
right, or they'll either do wrong. That's the self will
But
becoming
they look to the
part of
parents.
this.
and read
Part the parents and
reaction.
maybe even their friends.
Well,
Maybe
that
the parents
too.
don't do that, and the friends do. You know?
But that part has nothing to do with the gap
No, it
theory.
has nothing to do with it.
So
It has
let's
something to do with gapping and growing.
yeah. All right, so let's go to the next
Little
question.
baby doesn't have a sense of right and wrong.
Oh, they're born with it.
They're not aware of it yet.
They're just not aware
Yeah.
of it.
They're not
Yeah.
aware of that tree of
They're not aware.
Kundalini.
Yeah.
Don't touch
the,
that.
the,
It's
Bi-
not-
yeah, the Bible teaches it, so that of course,
That's why
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
says, unless you become like one of these, remember?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And he points back to a little baby
A little.
who is shameless,
Yeah.
and who doesn't have that sense of right and wrong yet. And he wants us to enter into that type of living with him.
And they're fun
Mm-hmm.
to watch. The babies are fun to watch.
Yeah. All right, question 2. It's from another fellowshipper. Does it require belief for God to be present? I know the indwelling spirit is in all of us, but does it require belief? Anybody have an answer to that?
No.
No.
No, of course not. No, God
heard
is
it said
God.
that
God
it's
is
okay, God
God
believes
is
in you.
God is present. That's it. You know, God is present with us all the time. He always has been. We're not always aware of it, and we're sometimes we just assume He probably wasn't. and but if God actually abandoned anyone, that person would no longer exist. Okay. God is everywhere. God is in everything. He is in everyone, and He is there by choice. And so, that never be concerned that God has ever left you. You might feel like it. You know, I have felt like it before, but He never has. And He always shows up. He's always been. Huh?
I thought he fell asleep for a while.
I know, yeah, I know. I'm sure you have. You know, and yeah, and I thought the same thing, huh?
No, I just said he was on break, right?
Yeah. So, All
That's
right. So,
typically when he's allowed in love for me to take over. And then I blame him for being asleep.
Yeah.
Blame him for being off the job.
yeah. Yeah.
Look what I've done now. Fix that.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can fix that.
All right. Of all the theological questions we could talk about, to me, this is the most important one. What do you think of God? And I've said down here, I'm becoming increasingly weary discussing whether or not the Bible is inerrant or inspired or most any other doctrines. If we don't understand and agree on the very nature of God, then we are never going to get a consensus on anything else. And Bill and Carl and I, we spend a lot of time with people and each other talking about different things. But the important thing is if you don't get God right, the rest of it is all simply tossed up in the air. It's just like the gap theory. I mean, that's a theory. But a lot of doctrines, people say, well, this doctrine is we believe this, and you got to believe in order to be saved, and so on. and I just want to get back in arguments or any conversations with anybody. What do you think of God? Okay, tell me what you think of God, and then tell me about everything else. But tell me first of all what you really think of God. What kind of a person is He? Is He a great God? Is He a two-faced God? What is He? And so that's primarily where I want to be with not necessarily here. Well, I mean, we talk about a lot of other things, but this group here is pretty much on the same page. But when we're out there in the world, and we're out there with like in that Christian Fellowship Ministerial Association today, I mean, you're talking about people who still back in the Dark Ages and what they believe. I mean, they're still believing Catholic doctrine and Protestant doctrine that's been carried on for 1,500 years that doesn't work. Okay? It just doesn't work.
No, Mike,
Yeah.
that's exactly the point that I was attempting to share is that we can all have this God is love, and then you get, yes, but the thing is you gotta. And then there's this little bit of where we all came from, and where we've all come from for the last 1,500 years or more, is that in order to see that God is love, you gotta. And then fill in the blank with however we've done it, with whatever, what's that, commerce type religion has given to us, which is you gotta. There is no gotta.
Mm-hmm.
God is love. And then from there, I have done so much better for myself personally to just be an observer. And then I find myself hip deep in love, doing something, I just say, oh, that's why that happened to me 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Is that now I'm ready to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's wow, because this is weird,
Yeah.
but it's love.
Yeah.
If you want to describe it, you can describe it however you want to, but it all comes out love.
Yeah. Yeah. Gina and I were just talking about this, and people, when we start talking about love with other Christians, we'll say God is love, and they'll say God is love, but,
Yeah,
and they say, but He's also just.
here we go again.
And when you hear the word but, you know that you're in a conversation you probably just soon not be in.
That's when the smile starts.
Yeah. It's God is love and He is just. Okay? It's not but. It's because they use God as love and His justice as being juxtaposed to each other. But God is love and He is just. And of course, then when she was asking, I said, well, then you ask the person, what do you mean by justice? What do you mean by just? Okay? And so, because there's two big different views of justice. Justice is setting everything right. That's what real true justice is. It's setting both parties. If you have two parties that are opposed, justice is setting both of these parties right, not setting one right and the other one in a bad position. Okay? It is true justice is fixing everything, fixing everybody. That's what true justice is, okay?
And that's already been done.
And it's already been
We
done.
were never
That's,
meant to carry this beyond the cross.
that's correct.
Oh, fill in the blank.
That's
So
correct.
take your justice and place it there.
That's right.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm blurting.
Yeah. Yeah. Take the good justice and place it there. Take your other justice and place it where the sun don't shine.
That's right. Excuse me.
All right. So,
So it is.
go ahead.
Excuse me. So it is that I'm finding that when people get angry at me,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing they do is bring out my Christianity. You're not a Christian because
No.
you can't be a Christian because you did this.
Yeah.
God wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm waylaid by that because I don't know what really to respond, except to smile.
There you go.
But the world doesn't look at God like we do. It's a vicious world we're in.
No. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah. So, actually, the world out there, the unbelievers actually look more like at God like we do, and it's the Christians that don't look at God like we do.
Thank you.
It's the Christians that say, well, God is love, yeah, but okay, and or you can't be a Christian and do that, okay, and you've heard all those kinds of things,
Yeah.
and if you were a Christian, you wouldn't act that way, and so on. I say, hey,
If it
hey,
takes 7 days,
if I'm acting untowards, then I apologize, but that's my flesh, okay, and so if I need to change, then I'll do it, okay, but that's my flesh. It doesn't mean I'm not a Christian. Okay, it just means I walked in the flesh for a while instead of walking in the spirit. And so, and we all do this. We walk in the spirit or we walk in the flesh. So if you walk in the flesh and somebody calls you on it, okay, hey, I admit it, okay? Acknowledge it and go on. But don't mully-grub about it and don't get down in the dumps about it. Don't, there's no point in doing that. There's no point in being shamed because that's just your flesh. And Paul said, hey, we all got the flesh. That's what the flesh does. But that's not me. I am not my flesh. I am a new creation. And everyone in this room is a new creation. Everyone in this world is a new creation. Most of us just don't know it. Okay, Dwight.
Well, oh my gosh. So the can of worms says Christian who spells awful about hatred towards homosexuals
Mm-hmm.
and other people, but I'm going to say homosexuals.
Okay.
There's no love there. If you knew God's love, what you did with your sex wouldn't be anyone's business.
Right.
So I hear the preachers and pastors
Mm-hmm.
spewing off this hatred,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see that they're not men of God.
Mm-hmm.
I
They're men
call
of God.
them
They're men of
domestic
God. They're just
terrorists.
walking in the flesh. Okay.
I call them domestic terrorists.
Well, I agree with you. Yeah.
Because they are
Yeah.
terroristic in their dogma.
Yeah.
They're,
Unacceptable.
People that teach on hell are that they're terrorists. That's
But-
and,
but for
and
me,
yeah.
I had to stop reading it. When I'm scrolling through,
Yeah.
I edit what I read now.
Okay. Good.
Because some of it is informational.
Okay.
And I like to know what the other side's doing.
Okay.
But,
But if you can't handle it,
oh my
pass
goodness,
it up.
how people hate.
Yeah, yeah.
You're right, Bobby. It's a very weird world we
Yeah.
live in.
Yeah.
And the people, the millennials,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have an opinion about God. They don't believe anything.
Yeah.
They're
They're a blank slate.
yes.
Yeah.
And if we seniors can bring about a life of love,
Mm-hmm.
we may be able to catch those poor souls.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I agree with you. That's what this Bible class is about, and that's what you know, Bill and Carl and I and all you people, that's what we're about. We're out here spreading love, okay?
Right.
We're spreading love to everybody, not just some, not just to Christians, but we're spreading love
But I'm telling
to
you,
all kinds.
I get to take this home with me.
You go on?
This love I get to take home with me.
Yeah,
This love that I
Yeah.
get here at this
Yeah.
group
yeah.
sustains my love.
Uh,
Keeps me
okay.
going.
Okay,
So
good,
it makes a difference to show up, to participate,
good.
to be in amongst people
Yeah,
that know God.
that's good. That's absolutely good. That's wonderful news. I'm glad to hear that, Tommy.
We take solace in the fact that the love is eternal, right?
Right.
Okay, so that being said, that in this time we also can use this wisdom, this mind that we have, and understand that if Mama said it takes 7 days to make a habit and 21 days to break a habit, we have 15 or 1700 years, 2,000 years of this
Yeah.
cultured doctrinal habit
Right.
to break. And so take solace in the fact that love is eternal, and I've quit counting. I quit counting on how long is it going to take for those people to see that I'm not a drunk,
Right.
you see?
Mm-hmm.
But understanding that they're still going to walk up and smell me. Because you always, and I have a God-fearing, she's in heaven with God right now, but she could not help herself to say, pray for Tommy. He hasn't had a sober breath in 20 years.
Really?
And so, that being said, I understand that that's the way they look at me still.
Yeah.
And if I'm happy, it's because I'm drunk. Well, you said that about Peter at Pentecost. So it's okay. I'm in good company.
Yeah.
And I still drink constantly.
What a group. Well, you know, I love you guys. By the way,
Deal with it.
God's got Bluetooth now, and so I can hear him better now on my hearing aids. I got Bluetooth hearing aids. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Where are we going here? Anything need to say anything else on that? Okay. Yeah, and you know, so what we're about is love. You know, and of course, God is love, Jesus is love, the Holy Spirit is love, and that's where we get it. And we have it. Just let it get unlocked, and that's what, you know. What's that song? Yeah, faith unlocks the door. That's what it is. Faith unlocks the door to our enjoying that and giving it. Okay,
I have
so
a question.
yeah.
About what you two were saying. Were you talking about when you said millennials? Does that mean like an age group
Mm-hmm.
Mostly the 20s, yeah.
that they? Well, you said they were a blank.
I
check.
don't, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a generalization.
But they know everything
Yeah,
Well,
because they're technologically astute.
yeah, they,
Let me
yeah, go
say
ahead.
something in their defense. I seen today was a good example. When I was at the Veterans Hospital, there were lots of. I see them as kids. If you're over 40, you're a kid.
Yeah.
That's right.
I see lots of young people that, for example, the Veterans Administration has taken on a whole new attitude. Where I walked in yesterday, I said I could tell that I'm old now because I walked in and I asked the lady where I get my blood drawn, and she said, you know, she had credentials on, and she said, I don't know, but let's find out. And she turned around and we went to this information counter, and the guy said, down here and down here. She said, come on this way. And she walked until we could see the lab. And she said, there it is. And then she turned around and left. And I thought, that's not just a nice person. that's a sort of the whole attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And when you mention the millennials, I think that I like the blank slate idea of it, but the fact of the matter is, in some ways, we're all sort of blank slates. Some of us have a lot of crap on our slate, maybe, but the fact of the matter is, we're receptive to these concepts, and I would, in defense, I didn't feel like I really had to defend the millennials, but I really see it that way because I've thought so much about it, having grandkids and kids in that range,
All my grandkids
and
are.
see sort of what they're exposed to and what they're not exposed to.
Well, the millennials. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I think they're all very receptive. Not all, most are very receptive, in that I see it as my part is to affect the number that I can, the maximum
Yeah.
number. So
The millennials are not going to church. Institutional. It's an institutional church. Yeah, and they
I
are.
have millennials.
Huh?
What age is millennial?
18 to 25.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
millennials in my family,
Mm-hmm.
and they do go to church, and they are Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and we have very good conversations on Facebook. Their attitude towards society is much different from what we had at our age, and they see a lot of
Question things.
they question a lot more than we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
They don't take
they
anything
have
for
an
granted.
incredible
Yeah.
amount of information.
And I have one
Yeah.
granddaughter that I would call her, what do you call them? A feminist. She's actually a feminist, but she's a Christian feminist, and she
Mhm.
has a boyfriend, and she's really going to church and doing
Mhm.
respect. I'm
Mhm.
going, wow,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I have to stand up for the millennials because I've seen the opposite of what everybody thinks of them. There are
They're just
Well,
millennials
no.
out
Well,
there that are
obviously, in every age group, there
gonna be
people of all
some.
kinds. But
both
But
kinds.
by and large,
generally
by and
speaking-
large, they're not
Right.
going to institutional church.
We don't have
in-
hardly anybody
in-
going to church. Have you noticed how the
Well, yeah, I know.
Churches are
See,
down?
the institutional church is losing members
Yeah. Oh.
right and left. They're 2.7 million a year are
Yeah.
leaving institutional
people are
church.
cynical.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I talked
they don't want to
to,
go anymore.
speaking of the millennials, I'm more inclined to believe these two in that I have a
Thank you.
notorious for one-liners. And I get into the feminist group and I said to this young gal, I said, if you don't think women rule the world, and she liked that, just ask Samson how important that haircut was. And she looked at me and, who's Samson?
Ah. Good one. I
Yeah.
That was
remember.
And I think also the millennials are not working. They don't tend to get jobs.
Oh, all mine do.
Well, I'm obviously they're very yeah, but there's it's just like the company here has a hard time finding people to go to work.
On this area.
Yeah, and
remember
this is
That was here.
in a lot of places. Yeah.
There was a person said, how much were they gonna pay him? He said, well, that's only $10 more than I'm getting on unemployment, so I'll just stick with unemployment.
Yeah.
But I think you are looking at the statistics that sort of fit your view. And
No, I don't have a view. I just read the statistics. That's all. Yeah.
I know that churches are probably down. The fact of the matter is there's way too much information out there. There's the internet. You can learn anything you want. You can hear anything you want. You can reach any conclusion you want. You can find someone who supports it. That's what millennials are dealing with.
Sure.
And so for them to even to find their way through that, I think is phenomenal. And I think it's way harder than what we had to work our way
Absolutely.
through.
But it's also culture and habitual, because when you mention God to that person, they look, hey Siri, do God.
Well,
And then they're Googling God. They're not thinking,
That's absolutely true.
They're not thinking
And
for
it's
themselves.
absolutely the way it should be. The fact is, if they want to find out about God,
Yeah, I
they
don't-
can
yeah.
ask Siri and
Yeah.
probably get a better explanation
they'll get written.
Yeah.
than they will get from 90% of the places they go. So that isn't a bad thing.
That's what I do,
maybe not.
Tom.
It is,
Yeah.
it is the way that life
Just
is.
looking.
And I see it as, I'm really confident in our youth.
Oh,
So am I.
I'm confident in what they're going to do with all the stuff that's in our world right now. And we contributed to a huge percentage of the black stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have a problem that they question everything. I mean, it's like they're from the show me state. Show me, you know, and so I say that's great. That's, you know, instead of just being, you know, followers. You know, it's
But
so I don't have a problem
family's
with
like
with
the
some
old-
of it. Okay.
my family's like she was talking about hers, where I have a granddaughter that's millennial. And she has, because of her family life, she had the more open view. She's technological. She graduated from Texas A&M. She got a job marketing, and she won a initial single-handed marketing pitch that had a spiritual overtone to it. And the slogan was "Blessings in a Backpack," for a backpack sales pitch or something. And I'm thinking, whoa.
That's awesome.
So that's having faith in the younger generation, but it had something to do with foundational family.
Well, my point really is, don't form your opinion by your family or your family or my
Oh, yeah,
family.
right.
Or one.
Right.
Right.
It is a generation we're talking
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why they call them
They're
millennials. Yeah.
responsible
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Co-generation.
And I believe in
Yeah.
them. And I think that's sort of what I promote.
I agree, because when I talk to them on the Facebook, other children besides mine, they're children to me. They're in their 30s and 40s. But they, all of them are doing the same thing. Like you say, they're groveling for the truth. They want to know the truth.
Hmm.
They feel like they haven't had the truth,
Right.
and they haven't.
And
Yeah.
they have it in
Right.
So
Yep.
we have neglected them in that area.
Yep. Okay. All right, let me just finish up
We
with
did it,
this
didn't
one thing here, since it's we won't get into Acts today, but this is a really funny thing, and Junie doesn't like me to read much, but I'm going to read this really quickly because it's really funny. Let's assume God wants to tell the human race about hell. It's a big deal. Hell affects a lot of people, right? So here's what God does. Number one, He doesn't warn humanity of it from the get-go, but rather tells Adam and Eve that the consequences of their fall was that they are now mortal and that they would now have to toil on the earth and then die. 2, He makes sure to never mention it in the entire Jewish canon, never once. The Old Testament never has hell mentioned one time. Then He makes sure that rival mythologies of pagan cultures believe in some kind of a fiery underworld as the punishment for wickedness. Okay? So what He's saying here is, you know, this is where Christianity gets it from the pagans. For number 4, He still doesn't tell the Jews about it. Okay? So then He makes sure that in the centuries and decades prior to God's coming to earth as a man, the competing Greco-Roman mythologies start to mingle and mix together. Jews start sort of believing in hell too. Now, even though their scriptures were silent on it. Rather than teach folks about hell Himself, God allows pagans to do it instead. God comes to earth as a man to set the record straight. Now, God as man makes sure to refer to hell almost exclusively using the term Gehenna, which is actually a nearby valley. Okay, that'll clear things up then, won't it? God says to Himself. No room for confusion there. On to other things. So God goes back to heaven. God's new followers break into the scene, and one of them preaches the first post-resurrection sermon, To God's chagrin, he completely forgets to mention hell. So then, God then notices that his new followers are conspicuously omitting the hell message all over the place. Ugh. Confounded, he